Ladies and gentlemen, we got another one.
Another one.
Another one. Special tablecloth. What did you say? Blue table.
Special cloth alert.
Special cloth
Yeah.
alert. I knew it was
I
something.
wish I
Yeah.
made that up myself. Um,
Yeah. But we got another press play, ladies and gentlemen. We're doing something a little different this time. We're doing a press play on Black is King, which is Beyonce's new joint, her visual album inspired by Lion King, but I think you have a more in-depth.
Yep. So I'll give you guys a quick, this is just like the official trailer synopsis on IMDb. So experience the visual album inspired by The Lion King, The Gift, Black is King, a film by Beyonce, which began streaming on July 31st on Disney Plus. So it's based on the music of The Lion King, The Gift. This film kind of reimagines the lessons from the 2019 blockbuster for today's young kings and queens in search of their own crowns. One of the knocks on this, if you look at a lot of reports, is that it doesn't connect to the Lion King, the film.
Mm-hmm.
However, again, this visual album is based off of the music that was featured in The Lion King or inspired The Lion King.
Okay.
So I didn't view that as a credible knock, because this movie wasn't intended to be we're going to explain The Lion King further. It's no, The Lion King is one thing, and this visual album is about the music behind all of it.
Okay, that's a thinker. That's a thinker. I got to think on that one a little bit, but
it makes perfect sense.
Initially, it doesn't make any sense. I swing a little bit to the right for me.
Okay.
So okay, let's go through this like we would any other press play, right? Let's talk about let's talk about the plot. Let's talk about the characters, the cinematography, and then of course the music, which obviously there's plenty to talk about there. So first of all, this the directing credit goes for this goes to Emmanuel Ajay, as well as Blitz Bazawali. I believe. My apologies for mispronouncing your name. You would think because of my name, I'm good at pronouncing names.
Yeah, you should be.
No, I'm awfully terrible at it. And then, of course, Beyonce gets a directing credit. And this is also written by Beyonce herself, as well as Yarza Daly Ward, Clover Hope, and Andrew Morrow. So, okay. Let's dig into the plot of this visual album, so to speak. Let's talk about and this is a disclaimer for the Beehive if they're watching. Whatever smoke you give us is great, because any interaction is good.
Just be sure to tag us.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump into what we think about the plot for this quote unquote visual album.
So I wouldn't necessarily say that, again, because this is a visual album, right? It's more about the music and there are linkages between the songs, and there's obviously a consistent theme with certain visual elements, certain people that you see throughout each song. I wouldn't necessarily say this visual album had the same plot structure as you would find in a typical film or show. So I don't necessarily have much to say about the plot, but what I can speak to is the tempo and the cadence of this visual album. It started off with a much more slower introductory song, something a little bit softer, something to kind of get you into the spirit of what you're about to experience, right? Set the tone, set the mood, for example. And then the cadence, and a lot of the beginning songs are very heavy Beyonce. Then the tempo kind of increases, gets a little bit faster. That's where you start to see more features. You see Burna Boy, you see Pharrell make an appearance, and the tempo goes up. So that could be considered maybe the apex or the climax of the film. And then there's the come down, the back part of the film where the tempo starts to decrease a little bit. And you're kind of nearing the end, right? I thought that was done masterfully. How the tempo and the cadence of this film, how you went through these progressions, I just thought it was beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's a separation between the plot of the film and then the music of the film, right? So obviously, it's a visual album. So, obviously music is going to play a pretty significant factor in it, right? But I think that when you have a visual album, like, so for instance, like, let's take like Lemonade, for instance, right? Lemonade was
Damn, I never saw that.
all right. So short conversation. I feel like Lemonade was a much more coherent, like story, right? That it was a much more direct and straightforward thing. Whereas this, and there's a lot to be said about the material that they're putting out. But with this, the plot of it didn't really, like, it's like they gave consideration to the plot of it in terms of like at the beginning, it's very, you can see the influence of Lion King, right?
Yeah.
Like some of the direct influences of it. But then as you get on to the middle of the thing, it's like they just completely abandoned that. It was like, we forgot we were even doing this about, Lion King.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, they're like, I guess we got to wrap this up somehow, and so I thought that left a lot for wanting, as far as like, okay, if you're going to say this is inspired by Lion King, and especially at the beginning, you're going to set us up as if this was, something to, an homage to the Lion King, then okay, let's do it. But don't give me half and half. Like, that's just confusing.
You wish there was more of a thread connecting everything.
To at least, like, okay, either say that, okay, some of this music and stuff was inspired by the Lion King, but the plot of it isn't like, has to do with that specifically, like, and give me something different. But don't give me like half Lion King, half random other shit, like, just give me one or the other. So
I agree with that.
That's essentially like what I thought of the plot. And then also too, what I would like to say is, for years, Jay-Z and Beyonce have dealt with the rumors of Illuminati and this and that, and it's just like, at what point does one get so much smoke that you're just like, there has to be some fire here, because there's so much fucking symbolism in this shit. And it doesn't all just have to do with the fact that, they're saying black is king, right? Like, it's not just to do with like, oh, they're trying to uplift the black community. There's some like fucking narcissistic shit going on here with just them. As far as them and then their kids. There's just so much symbolism and shit here. So much so that I want to do a deep, like, not analysis as if we're going to get on the podcast and talk about it, but I want to do a deep dive into like what all the little shit in this like actually means. Cause there's so much of it, from, just, I don't know, just every inch of this thing feels like it's just like sequence off with just like shit that's supposed to mean something, but we have no idea what the fuck it means. And so if they've dealt with all those rumors for all these years, you would expect that they try to do the opposite of it, of like, all right, like, let's watch all the symbolism shit. But it's just like, let's just go balls to the wall with symbolism.
Give them what they think they want, right? What they've been asking for. Give them more of it so they can continue talking. Either way, we're getting paid.
So yeah, okay, let's jump into the characters, if we can find anything in this
I mean, I think the only consistent characters throughout this thing was Beyonce, Blue Ivy Carter, and Blue Man. It's Blue Man. So he was the guy who was in the blue body paint. That boy can dance. God damn. He killed this thing. Like, his ability to not just pull off like the artistic part of it, like the dancing, right? But like, he was like an entity in and of himself. Like, he was kind of like I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like a character who is symbolic, but still like a character in the film. Like, they stand for something. They mean something larger than the character that they're playing. And I feel like his consistency throughout this visual album, gives me that sense. Like, he was more of a symbol more than he was just like a choreographer or dancer in the show. So for me, he lit this shit up. That solo dance scene with him and Beyonce, where she's like up on the box, they killed it.
I'm not gonna lie,
that was fire. But then again, and again, this film doesn't have traditional characters like a movie or show would, but I love some of the appearances. We've got appearances from Jay-Z. We've got appearances from Lupita Nyong'o. We've got appearances from Kelly Rowland, Pharrell Williams, just to name a few. Some of my favorite artists, like Burna Boy, was featured in this. Him and Beyonce. Well, I don't think it's him and Beyonce song. I think they featured his song as an African artist from the album African Giant in this visual album. I just love everything about like a lot of the characters and appearances that we saw in this visual album.
Yeah, mine's gonna be short. My greatest my favorite appearance in this was actually wasn't somebody who actually literally showed up on screen. James Earl Jones.
The voice, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, you can't have a fucking Lion King,
You
you know,
cannot.
inspired film without fucking having James Earl
Yeah,
Jones, you know, to
I wonder what check he needed. Like, how much was?
yeah, he was just like,
Do you just do it out of love?
you know, they did it a couple times, right? They called him the first time. They're like, all right, we need you to do this, but like, you know, we can't give you the, you know, the full bag for
Yeah,
it. We gotta give you a partial bag. And he was just like, all right, well, you know,
yeah.
no. So
I'm
and then
still
hung up.
counting. I still got these Lion King residuals from the
Residual.
first movie.
You know, so they called him back again. They were like, all right, we threw a couple more zeros on there. How do
Do
you
it for the
feel?
culture, James. So he's like, all right, all right.
What do you want me to say? You
Yeah.
know, in his classic James Earl. So he was a good narrator for the whole thing, and I thought he gave like that above anything else is what gave it the most sort of Lion King
Yeah,
sort of
the
feel.
feel of it
As
was
you know,
authentic. Yeah.
he was the voice of not Mufasa, or was it
Uh,
Mufasa?
Mufasa. Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was Mufasa.
Mufasa.
Wait, Simba was the child. I don't know
Mhm.
why I thought it was. Anyways, so yeah, so he's my vote for sort of like the character that I most enjoyed in it, even though he doesn't play a like a character so much as he
Yeah,
just narrates the thing. But I thought his appearance or his vocal appearance was very sort of welcomed and necessary
yeah.
for the piece. All right, let's jump into the cinematography. What do we think about the cinematography of it?
I mean, you know, it's a visual album, right? So it's cinematography here was that's one of the things that stands out to me the most. You could watch this on mute and just the visual elements from the color dynamics to like how this is graded to locations to the costumes. Visually, this is stunning how it was shot. And I think they used some really like unique shooting styles from
Mhm.
this, right? They use a number of dynamic shots. Like you could tell there's a lot of drone usage in this because a lot of the landscapes that they're at are like out in the desert,
Yeah.
out by the water. So you know, the first opening scene where like the drone is coming in to Beyonce and she's on the beach. I just thought very, very simple, but beautifully and well done.
Yeah.
So I just love the dynamic range of how they shot this thing and then how certain videos were graded.
Mhm.
There's this song where it's like a "Find Your Way Back." They added this like really like grainy gradient texture to it,
Mhm.
and I just felt like it enhanced the visual elements because in that scene in that video they were like out in the desert, right, where it's sandy, it's grainy, and again it just added a lot of texture to it. And then
Yeah.
certain other music videos they shot using like you know I remember the video I'm watching the video with Burna Boy where they're riding in the car, right?
Mhm.
And they like you could tell that there was just like a single camera, somebody was in the car riding with the artist, and the way they shot that again added and enhanced like the music and the intimacy of it with like the different artists who were performing. So, you know, I loved it. You can watch this thing on mute and it's still beautiful.
Yeah, I thought it was a very beautifully sort of shot thing. But what I would say is that weirdly enough, for a piece that's called Black is King, they sure did have a lot of like white shit in this. Like I
Like what?
remember, like okay, so
I
for
can see a
instance,
Starbucks.
just like huh? You said Starbucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, like this is Game of Thrones. No, but like just even the like literally the color white. Like they
Mhm.
had a lot of scenes that were just like all white scenes, right? Which is like okay. All right. Black is king though, but the scene itself is just nothing but just all white as if this is supposed to be our perception of like
Yeah.
some like the aspiration to like okay, purity and shit like you know what I mean
Yeah.
like there's that kind of like sort of like symbolism in it. And then also too like I forget what song it was, but Beyonce has like oh like we love your hair even if it's like nappy. There's some lyric that is akin to that, and then they show like a woman with like just like you know hair that's like straight, and it's just like
Long straight hair, that
well
weave
I
in
mean
there.
that doesn't quite make sense. Like you
Yeah.
know there's just like a lot of that shit that was going on that I was like huh that's a curious choice, but yeah I can't argue with the fact that it's just different. It was unique in terms of how they shot it. But I will have to say I'm not gonna lie to you, for Jay-Z and Beyonce, or I guess maybe just Beyonce production, although I'm sure Jay-Z has something to do with it, right?
Yeah.
Um, the visual effects, weren't the best.
Yeah, they didn't
I'm
have the
not gonna
Marvel
lie.
team
Yeah,
working on these visual
yeah.
effects for sure. They had
Yeah, I
three
can't
people like,
lie.
you guys got to do all these visual
Yeah,
effects. They're like,
yeah.
well, I only really, my skill set is only like this type of visual effects. They're like, no, well, you got to do
You
everything.
got to make it work. And you know, Jay-Z and Beyonce are counting
It's
on
like,
you.
I'm an animator. They're like,
So
fuck it. We need you to create a starlight sky background and shoot a star into her
I've been
stomach.
on the job 2
Like,
weeks. What do you want
like,
me to do?
I can't do this. It's like, YouTube it.
And I should say that Michael Fernandez, Santiago Gonzalez, Ryan Marie Helfont, and Maria Celeste Grahanan, who she was the editor on the film. But the other three were the actual cinematographers. So I'm imagining based on location, they just had different cinematographers, or maybe it was some other combination. I have no idea. But they have the cinematography credit as well as the editing credit on the visual album. So yeah, that's what I could say about the cinematography. It was that some of the visual effects left a little for wanting, but it was good overall as
Yeah.
far as the actual visual aspect to it. Now how that translated into the story they were trying to tell, again, I'm not quite sure how that translated that much, but we'll move on.
After 40 minutes, when you're 40 minutes in, you don't give a shit about the Lion King anymore. You're like, yo, this is fire.
Okay, so as far as like the music for the piece goes, James William Blades gets the music by credit on this. I don't know why exactly, since obviously it's from an album that Beyonce produced, but however that works out. So what do you think of the actual, like, the music, the score, yada yada?
I mean, come on, like the music was stellar. I loved how this is not solely about Beyonce and her music. The goal of this was to incorporate African artists like
Yeah.
Burna Boy, who played a huge role in putting together this project. So while her music was phenomenal, the music from the African artists that she featured was stellar as well, and she gave them their time to shine. Like, she wasn't all, what did Suge Knight say? She wasn't all in the video. She allowed those artists to shine. She allowed African music to shine. She allowed African artists to shine, African symbolism to shine. So this is, for me, just a really great visual cultural piece. Music was stellar. There's nothing else you can really say about that. I didn't feel like there was any, and again, for me, the big thing was like the tempo, how it started, where you were at in the middle, how the music made you feel, the come down, and like telling, like, it's like listening to a complete album, right? I hate listening to albums where the last song on the album is like super high tempo song. Like, nah, you got to curate more of a listening experience. And I think that's what this was.
Yeah, I think, again, and maybe it was just me, but like, some of my favorite songs from the visual album they weren't Beyonce's, right? So I think what was the first one that I remember? I think it was the first one from Burna Boy, which is Ja Ara E, was the first song that I can remember, like, was like, oh, okay, yeah, I mess with this, like, I bang with this.
Yeah.
Like, everything else up to that point was kind of just like, all right, I think Beyonce's just feeling herself here a little bit. But that was the first one I was like, all right, bet. Like, that one was actually pretty hot. And then there was their Kendrick feature on it, which was strange because Kendrick wasn't actually in the video. So maybe Kendrick was like, yeah, I don't know what this is, but it doesn't sound like something I want to be a part of. I don't know if that was the case or not, or if the schedules just didn't line up. But it was strange not having Kendrick in there, but having, like, Beyonce mouth the lyrics to the song. But that was kind of a hot track.
The joint with Pharrell.
Yeah, that one was bumping.
That joint was
thumping.
fire.
It was thumping. Yeah. Another feature that was interesting was Jesse Reyes. I don't know if you remember that one. It was the song called Scar. And so Jessie Reyes, of course, she's an artist that came on the scene, more recently. But
she was in the black, and they were out in like in the jungle.
Yeah. It was a really interesting feature, to say the least. And Jessie Reyes, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not, there are a lot of people who are around me who are huge fans of hers. I don't know if I'm, I necessarily feel her music all that much, but this was a nice feature is what I can say about that. So I thought that was a good song as well to add in there. Um, yeah, outside of that, man, everything else was kind of just like a mood, kind of like it was more atmospheric to me than it was like an album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Listen,
yeah.
man, I was high and I was with somebody who was annoying as fuck and blew my whole high. Um, I still enjoyed it.
There you go.
That person was annoying as shit, but I was still like, damn, this Beyonce killing this joint.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So yeah. Do we have any other like closing remarks about the visual album known as Black is King?
I mean, for me, if you haven't seen it, like you owe it to yourself just to see it. Like if you are having people over, and even if you just want great background noise and visuals, because it's like there's nothing better than when you're having a party, you have great music going on in the background. Maybe you have some like music videos on the TV or something on the TV that people can like watch loosely. Maybe they pay attention to it, maybe they don't. This would be a great thing. The music, I think it's like an hour and a half long. You'll have an hour and a half of like just good music and just shit happening. But I also recommend you just watch this thing in its entirety. It is a great body of work.
Yeah. What I would say is yeah, don't watch it thinking that like I don't need this to be a visual album. I just you could just give me the album on this one. I can pass the
Yeah.
I can pass the visuals up a little bit.
Remember when Michael Jackson made that Scream thing, the movie?
Scream thing.
It was like the Michael Jackson movie where he had all of his songs in there and he turned into the huge robot at the end.
Oh, that wasn't
That was
Scream. That
dope.
was a part of his
Billy-
Moonraker or Moonwalker.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, it was that one.
This reminded me of that. That was dope.
That was dope. This was just a little bit strange at times, but fair enough. I mean, although that was kind of strange too, but yeah, I don't know. Like for me, yeah, I could have probably missed the visual album part of it, but just give me if I just listened to the album itself, I think I might have felt a little differently about the whole work.
Yeah.
But I started off with watching the visual album without hearing the actual album itself, so maybe that painted the way that I interacted with it. But in any event, yeah, we press play on Black is King. Everybody else should do so as well. Just to, for no other reason other than to just fucking check it out.
Just do it.
Just do
Yeah.
it.
You
Press
got nothing
play.
else to do.
Let us
You're
know.
unemployed.
Yikes!
Like 46, 49, 50 million
Somebody
other
was
people.
having a great time in this review until you just said that.
Like those unemployment checks.